Welcome to Mythical Phylogeny Adventures. A couple of weeks ago, a game called Monster Hunter Wilds came out, and that got me thinking, which of the 14 weapons in it would actually work well for an adventurer, if you would find yourself in the Hunter's Guild. I won't be looking at which is the best in the game, but would really be the best to keep you alive. But we need to take a few caveats, namely, most of these weapons are so unrealistically heavy to be used. Half of them would weigh twice what an armored human would weigh. We also need to assume that they work the way they are said to. Guarding prevents damage, and weapons can pierce armor. Now, a shield really shouldn't work here. I mean, half of these monsters are bigger than an elephant. You can't block a charging elephant with a shield, but it can protect you from other attacks, like webbing or corrosive spit. Now, I would want a handle and a shield boss over a strap. With the strap, if the monster picks it up, they drag you along too. Here, the best defense is just not being hit. High mobility. So what makes a good weapon? It needs to be able to reach vital organs, either slashing, piercing, or bludgeoning. Slashing is best if aimed at the throat or the belly. It will struggle to get through the ribs to reach the critical heart and lungs, though the legs should have major arteries to be targeted. Piercing will do this better, if it can get past the ribs. Let's start with a classic, sword and shield. And there are issues right away. Blade length. It will struggle to reach critical organs without getting you too close. Even with the shield, it may make the fight turn into a long slog. You would want to try and stab with it, but it would be more difficult, and there is a better option. So, what's better than one sword? Is it two? That is the dual blade. Two blades which allow for quick attacks, but no defense, and it has the same reach as the sword and shield. Sadly, not one of my top picks. Probably my lowest choice. But what is better than one sword? A bigger sword, like the Great Sword. This is a massive weapon, the size of a human. If you hit a monster with it, I can guarantee you that it will feel it. Even without a sharp edge, it can break bones if the skin holds together. You can even guard with it, if you need to. Sounds good, but it has an issue. It is slow. You need to commit to every attack. That can leave you exposed if you miss time or facing multiple foes. But there is a better option, the long sword. While it can't guard, it can be swung faster than the great sword. Sure, this takes time to power up, but it offers reach and speed to let you dance around your foe and bring it down. This is actually a pretty good one. The hammer will fall in between the greatsword and the longsword. It won't cut the skin, but shouldn't have issues breaking bones. And above that, it has the potential to break the skull and neck. Yes, that will take time, but it has a high chance. Best though is that it can get through the heaviest of armors. Most medieval knights died more from internal bleeding than being impaled, and that could be the case with the tough armor of monsters. Now, when I looked at this one, I laughed. The hunting horn, for those who wish to fight as a bard. It is a large saxophone, mixed with drums or lutes, depending on which version. Now, it is like the hammer, but probably lighter. It has a lot of rough edges, which would focus the damage, but it has another use. Sound-based attacks. By producing notes in a sequence, you can either buff your party or damage your foe. Sadly, this will be a problem with other weapons too. When you have moving parts, you run the risk of breaking them, and we already need to go about and sharpen our weapons. So sooner or later, you will break part of this weapon and lose the sound bonus. This is more of a support weapon than a brawler's tool. This brings us to the lance and shield. It may sound like the sword and shield, but there is a difference. The lance can pierce and reach the heart and lungs better than the sword. Sure, it won't be slashing, but a good thrust will get deeper and end the fight quicker. And now we get to one of my favorites, the switch axe. It's an axe and a longsword. The sword is faster, but the axe offers more power and reach due to moving the center of gravity out. This lets you adapt to the changing situation, but I'm concerned about the mechanism breaking that switches between the two modes. Worst case, you get stuck in one mode or the other. The charge blade is similar. It is a sword and shield that combine to an axe. So we get a defensive option with a fast blade, and a long-reaching axe is also available. The same issue with the transformation mechanism breaking though. But the shield is the axe head, and that means in the worst case scenario, you could use its edges to cut a foe. Next up is the insect glaive. This is a long-reaching spear and pole-arm with a kinesect that flies about and inflicts other issues. The large kinesect can create healing effects, poison, or paralysis, depending on the species, which is very helpful. Now the glaive itself is nice. It gives reach with both piercing and slashing attacks. But above all else is its mobility. You can use it to jump over attacks and land on the monster's back and get to work. This one I'm giving a high mark to. Next is the bow. A simple standard bow, but it has a tracking mechanic to help aim at large foes. Attacks from range are smart. If a monster can't reach you, it can't eat you. Now, perfect! But the issue comes in human endurance. To pierce monster hide, it will need a high poundage, and that means fatiguing you out quickly. But a better option is the light bowgun and the superior heavy bowgun. Both offer range and power. The only issue is if a foe gets close. They could be difficult to load and fight with large mobile foes. These would need to be more akin to elephant guns in caliber, but that isn't a problem. And that leaves one weapon. My top pick is the gun lance. It offers piercing attacks to reach key organs and a large shield for defense, not to mention a limited range attack. This gives a good all-around setup, but the main issue is a loss in mobility. That is the one downside to it, sadly. Basically, this is a rifle with a bayonet and a shield. This is a little different than looking at monsters like I usually do, but still a fun one. Thank you for watching, adventurers. Until next time, I'll see you on the roads.